This is your pal EMD-SD14R, and it's May the 4th be with you. That's right, it's May 4th, 2020. Beautiful weather today. Did a lot of cool things. Filmed an Amtrak maintenance away train at Berwyn Station today. And I'm making this video. It's another project that I had. I had an idea about it for a couple years now. So this is basically a customized American GK / Atlas E60. And let me show you. So the chassis is actually an SD35 chassis. This is actually the chassis that I used for my F24C, and originally I was using this as like a type of an experiment to see if I could use the Atlas SD35, SD24, SD26 chassis to basically repower an American GK E60CF. So what I did is I started buying parts. The trucks are Atlas GE C30-7 trucks. They're from a former Union Pacific unit. And then the bolsters are actually customized. So let me show you the original Atlas SD35 trucks. So there's really not much difference between the C30-7 and the SD24 trucks. The only thing that's different is the height of the truck bolster area. That's the only thing that's different between the two. Other than that, they're pretty similar as far as design. But what you have to do is you have to take some styrene and make new bolsters for it, which is what I did. And I basically drilled holes out and put screws in them. I think they're... What kind of screws did I use? I used those kind of screws, except they're Phillips heads. Yeah, they wouldn't be that long though. They'd actually be a lot shorter. But yeah, the same type of screws as far as diameter is concerned. And it was a little touch and go to get this done because I just had to do some careful filing, retesting, until I got everything situated correctly the way I wanted it to be. And then I actually started assembling it. The key thing is to get the original drive shafts from the SD35 to work, you have to make sure that the C30-7 trucks are spaced appropriately so that you can use the original drive shafts. So the cool thing about the drive shafts are you can actually interchange them between the two locomotives, and the gear towers are also the same. Although I think in this case I used, actually if I'm looking on here, they're both different. So I used, well anyway, they both work, so the gear tower tabs are interchangeable. This actually is DCC, so this is actually, if you look at the decoder, it says Jeep 38. This is actually a sound decoder. It's an old MRC sound decoder. This actually came from my Atlas RS4 Mac, the black one. Someone actually customized it to an RS3. I rebuilt it to an RS4 Mac. And I had this laying around, and yeah, I basically made it DCC. It actually runs on DC as well, but yeah, but I don't have speakers hooked up to it because it would sound like a diesel. Yeah, but yeah, that was the final piece to the puzzle. And then I had to order, where is it? I had to order the board retainers for the Atlas board. So I had to order those. I got those from Seattle, Washington. And yeah, they came in, and that was it. I did a test run with this chassis just by itself. That's on my Instagram page, which is under it's under the same YouTube name. So if you just type that into Instagram, it'll pop up. So yeah, the chassis modifications weren't, the chassis didn't need any modifications. I just modified the truck bolsters. Yeah. And I labeled the trucks, the R for rear, F for front. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want to get the trucks mixed up. but the American GK shell does need modification. And let me show you in a second as to what I did. So I brought out my Conrail E60CF just to show you guys what I did to the Penzi shell. Oh, I actually won this Penzi shell in a bid on eBay last week, and I've always wanted a Penzi E60CF, and I never was able to find one. But this shell came up, and this was a perfect, opportunity for this project. But if you can see here, how much shorter the shell is. This is just to accommodate the SD35 chassis, because when you just try the normal shell, there's too much of a gap between the rear of the body shell and the coupler pocket on the SD35 chassis. Now what you can do, you can actually modify it that you could put like styrene in between the shell and the chassis and just make a new coupler bolster. I didn't want to do that because that would be too time consuming. So what I basically did is I cut out a section of the rear here, and actually, if you guys can, I don't know if you can see that clearly, but the rear grills back here are actually a lot shorter than here. So if you look here, so let me use this as a reference. So this much of the shell back here was removed and made it and was designed, well, that much of the shell was removed so that the body shell would fit pretty much snug on the chassis. And I tried to do it in such a way that I tried to do it in such a way that I didn't mess up the paint. I mean, that needs a little touch up right there, because I did do some sanding and filing on the sides. But if you look at the top, I mean, so much for the, I mean, there's a little, like, you really can't tell. You really can't tell too much about, like, where I cut the shell. I mean, you can see it right there, but it's not that noticeable. Not that noticeable. And I was able to keep both pantograph holes. So it's really not that much, like, it's really not that noticeable unless you put both shells together. So let me get this Conrail unit out of here. Let me put this shell on. I'm just gonna secure the rear coupler for this so I can show you the underside. So here's what I was showing you guys. So that's why I had to cut the shell. Let me see if I can get that clearer. So now the Atlas SD35 chassis fits snug inside here. And the brass beams here that are on the diesel fuel tank, that was originally used to keep the F24C shell level, but it's now being used to keep this body shell level on this locomotive now. So I pretty much have decided not to do the F24C at this point. Just right for now, I think. I want to get this up and running. Well, it is running, but I've always wanted to do an Atlas American GK E60 because, the Atlas drive has superior pulling power. It's very quiet, and this engine is really quiet. It's way quiet compared to the original ones. Now, technically speaking, since I have the original one out here, you can upgrade these with the Atlas trucks, but you have to design a completely new frame bolster to accommodate the Atlas truck, which means you have to cut the original one off, make a new one out of brass to accommodate the Atlas truck, and then you can just pop a Genesis motor in there with the correct drive shafts and you're ready to go. But that is a very, very tedious process, and I, for one, do not have the tools to do it or the time to do it. Even if I did have the tools, I would probably need a lot of help doing that. This was actually the simplest way for me because all you have to do is pretty much shorten the shell. originally when I was going to cut the shell, I was going to cut it at this line right here. But that would have been a mistake because even it would just been a mistake in my opinion. So I basically took it from the rear here, and that was very tedious right there. But it worked out great. Let me just put this on the track so you guys can see it run a bit because it actually is a great runner. And as it is right now, it's really heavy. It doesn't really need the actual weights. That's the front truck weight. I actually took that off, and when I put it back on, for some reason it just, I don't know if it's something with the metal, but it just makes the whole drive system jerky. So when I took the weight off, it doesn't do that. Don't know why it does that, but let me just put this on the track for you guys, and I'll show you how it runs, okay? So as you guys saw in that running clip, she's very quiet, very smooth running. Yeah, so I can't wait to get this engine done. I had to put the windows in, horn, insulators, and definitely some pantographs or pantograph. But yeah, that's my Atlas GK E60CF. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions about it, just leave them in the comments below. God bless y'all. Later.